All right, so let's do a short one. This usually has a couple videos and some activities and stuff that I do with it, but we'll talk through this one just because I think it's pretty important, something you're going to want to know. So we're going to talk about Weber's law here a little bit and understanding what that is and what difference threshold essentially is. So we learned a little bit about action potential in our biological basis for psychology, right? Action potential is once a threshold's met, a neuron's going to fire all or nothing and send that signal, right? So you get something touch your hand. Once it meets that threshold, that message is going up to tell your brain that, oh, something touched my hand, okay? So what we're going to look at is a little bit different than that. So that would, with that, you're going to be looking at your absolute threshold, right? Your absolute threshold, meaning this is where it has to be hit to be able to excite those receptors to send the message to your brain that something's going on. Well, what we're looking today is we're going to talk a little bit about difference threshold, right? So when we're talking about difference threshold, we're going to be talking more about percentage than activation. So we're going to be looking at what is the percent change in something that is necessary for you to be able to tell a difference between it. So, for instance, if we're talking about, and I'll scoot forward here a little bit, if we're talking about things like light. So for you to be able to tell a difference in the light of a room, it needs to change by roughly 8%, right? If it changes by 2%, you most likely would not be able to tell that the light in the room had either gotten more intense or dimmed in some way. Same thing as the example for hearing. And oftentimes, many of you may have done a hearing test where you sit in the booth and you put the headphones on, they do the beeps in either ear. Well, you need a change at about 0.3% in the tonal frequency to be able to tell that difference. So what they'll be doing, what they'll be testing for is higher frequency, lower frequency, louder, softer, etc., tone, pitch, blah, 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 of the different beeps in your ear to see kind of where your range is. But when we're looking at the difference threshold, for the average person, perceived difference to stimuli must differ from a constant minimum percentage, not a constant amount. So to be able to tell the difference in weight, for instance, if you had a 200-pound dog that was laying on top of you and you had to tell the difference if it was between a 199-pound dog and 200-pound dog, there's probably a chance that you can't do that, okay? So what you'll look for is what is the percent change in the weight of that dog that is laying on top of you that you would first be able to say, oh, well, that is a definitely lighter and or heavier dog, okay? And we can use this image here a little bit. So you can see the changes here, right? Being able to understand this Weber's law in terms of our own perception of body language, our own perception of color. Notice how the images to the left and the right change in variation of color in brightness, hue on either side, okay? So all of this is going to play into Weber's idea and this idea of difference threshold. A good idea of this, and you can check out the video on your own, but are these old commercial ads for Febreze, because you're not cleaning a room with Febreze. What you're doing is you're changing the percent of odor in the room to change the smell. So nothing's getting cleaner, remember this. So if it smells funky like a dog or old food or socks or whatever, by adding the Febreze, all you're doing is changing the percent of scent molecules that are in the air, which your nose are taking in, to smell different. There is no change in the actual environment. That dog's still stinky. The socks are still gross. But what you're doing is your receptor sites are registering that change between the two. Okay. So subliminal messaging kind of works along the same lines. Another cool little video that you'll be able to kind of check out on your own. But wanted to make this clear delineation because you're going to want to know this, right? This is one of those things in your notes for the unit that you want to star. Weber's law and difference threshold as well as absolute threshold, but we've kind of already addressed that a little bit and we'll continue to talk about it. But those three should definitely be somewhere prominent so that you're able to kind of know the definition and have application as to how they might work.